Hello.
I am so excited to be here with you all in these comfortable chairs.
Yeah,
and
I
can't
feel
figure out.
sorry. You know, when you're on like a talk show of any kind, you're always wondering what kind of chair it'll be in.
Totally.
This one is great.
This one is amazing. You heard it here first. The host of Podcrushed, you all know, you probably listen. Podcrushed centers on stories from adolescence, from teenage years, specifically from middle school, although the scope of the show has expanded. We'll talk about that. But in the spirit of the show, I thought we would do a fun icebreaker, although that's a bit of an oxymoron. I would love for each of you to introduce yourself to our friends here, and then introduce your middle school self. Okay?
Okay. So,
An intake of breath from the audience. Penn, do you want to go first?
Oh, okay. All right, so I'm Penn Badgley. Hello. Yeah,
You can clap.
sure. Pause for applause. Thank you. And one standing. Is it an ovation if it's one person? Is it? No.
Oh gosh.
Okay, I mean, that's fine. You're welcome to do what you please. But I didn't want to encourage, was that idolatry? I'm not sure. What am I doing? I'm introducing my middle school self. Okay.
Yes.
Well, I might have been 10 when I started middle school, which is a little bit young. Mm-hmm. Yeah, just, you know, short, little chubby kid in the Pacific Northwest who was very, 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 very quiet, very, very shy, but discovering a love for... Am I supposed to be doing this in first person? Like, hi.
Yes, any person you want.
Yeah. And I love acting.
What were you listening to?
I love R&B music. I loved R&B music.
Cool.
That was like Drew Hill and Blackstreet were the two bands who, I mean, they really, I knew every sound on those records. Let's see, that's, yeah, I loved music. I was discovering performing, very, very shy. I was doing community theater, and so, you know, I would move to Hollywood by the time before I would finish middle school.
Wow.
And then that's a different, that's 12, that's actually 12.
That's 12, so we're going to cut it off right there. Sophie, please.
Hi, I'm Sophie Ansari, and I obviously co-host with these two lovely friends. Another bow, please. No.
You got it, actually. You did, you're consistent, so that's good. I now support. Yeah.
You know, in middle school, you are asked to come up with an adjective that starts with the same letter as your name, a classic, not a great icebreaker, honestly, but my go-to was silly Sophie.
Silly
wow,
Sophie,
really?
that works.
Yeah. You don't think I'm silly?
Well, no, I mean, I don't know. Especially, did you always go silly?
Actually, you know, maybe not the hands, but yeah, the elongated silly.
Wow.
It works.
No, but yeah, when I think about my middle school self, I honestly, the first thing that comes to mind is a very specific body posture and weird voices, and I had a silliness that I think I'm always trying to get back to.
Yeah, and the body posture was this kind of crouched thing you're doing.
Yes, I mean, I could get up and do it, but I won't.
Maybe at the end of the show. Okay, beautiful.
Yeah, maybe.
Silly Sophie.
Encore.
Nava.
Hi, I'm Nava. And thank you.
Go ahead.
At 12 years old, I had just discovered the Spice Girls. They were hot on the scene.
Oh my gosh.
Loved them. I was in love with my best friend Jose, who was in love with my best friend Maria. And I would give Jose advice about how to land Maria, and it was good advice. I was not sabotaging him. But yes, I was sort of in the middle of fighting my feelings and giving him really genuine advice, but they would never get together, and he and I would never get together. So there was sort of this endless loop. And then in the summer, I think, of 12 years old, I went to asthma camp. So maybe a clue as to why Jose
My
and
favorite fact about Nava.
I forgot about this.
Yeah.
First of all, that's a thing.
Yeah.
And that you went, I forgot.
Yeah, I did spend a summer at asthma camp. So
For kids with asthma. Can I ask, we won't dive too deep because it could take all 45 minutes.
Yeah.
What do you do at asthma camp?
It's a sports camp for kids with
Slowly,
asthma.
whatever it is.
It is really a sports camp to just expand your lung capacity so that you can have you can go further and further in sports. That's really
wonderful.
what it is.
And now
yeah.
you regret making fun of it because
I
it's a
know,
wonderful
I know.
mission.
I mean, yeah.
No, it's still funny.
It's pretty funny. It actually is still funny. It's still
Yeah.
funny. I love it. Perfect way. Great icebreaker, right?
Yeah, great job,
Let's
Anna.
talk more about Podcrushed. Can you briefly tell me the sort of origin story of the show?
You point at me, but I mean, the real origin story starts with Nava.
So in 2020, there was a global pandemic, some of you might remember.
Yeah.
And we were looking for hope, I think a lot of us, and looking for reasons to laugh and feel uplifted. And I had listened to like a piece of media where this girl was reading out of her middle school diary, and it was so funny, and the stories she was telling were so relatable. And I started looking, I wanted to like just listen to a podcast of people's middle school stories, so I started searching for that. I was like, oh, okay, I just want to hear like more and more stories like these, and I couldn't find one.
Whoa.
And I was like, wait, someone should make a podcast that's just people reading from their middle school diary, because this is so funny. This is like hilarious, this girl's extreme drama and angst. And when I couldn't find one, I was like, we should make one. And I approached, Penn and I had just started a production company together, but I didn't approach him first. I approached Sophie first. She and I had nothing together.
Yeah, that's true.
But I was like, let me call Sophie. She was a middle school
Silly
teacher.
Sophie,
She was
yeah.
artistic.
Silly Sophie.
Yeah, silly Sophie. And then I called Penn to run it by him, and he was like, maybe I could be part of it. And I was like, yeah, maybe you could be part of it. Yeah, that might be okay. And that's sort of like the origin of it.
Yeah, I mean, so first of all, some of the context you're leaving out is that how much did your experience as a middle school administrator?
I had been a middle school teacher and administrator, and I also remembered how crazy middle schoolers were. And how fun they were. And it's sort of like that time of life where you're advanced enough that you can do wild things, but your brain isn't developed enough to prevent you from doing those wild things. It's just this like unique time in life.
Totally. Let's talk more about that. Middle school is a time many people would love to ignore, right? Pretend never happened. What is it about that particular slice of someone's experience that's so rich for you all to dig into?
Keep looking at me. Okay. Well, I mean, so like chemically, biologically speaking, there's a lot that the sciences can provide us that backs up this notion. Because I think things are happening in your body and your brain they're essentially never happening. They don't happen before. They don't happen again. There's, a lot of plasticity in the brain. There's also a lot of plasticity in the brain when you're like an infant and toddler and stuff like that. But it's a really plastic time, neurologically speaking. So obviously, like just your ability to see the world. You think about it. You enter adolescence and you're a child. And then when adolescence is over, you're an adult. A child cannot possibly understand or conceive of or perceive what it really is to be an adult. You know what I mean? Like it's you think of even like sexuality alone. That's not, there's a reason it's inappropriate to discuss it past a certain point with children because they just can't conceive of it yet, and that's fine. So I think similarly, we tend to focus on that in adolescence, but there's actually quite a lot more happening. There's, you think of like morality, spirituality, the way you're going to see the world politically, the way you're going to approach education, which at a more meaningful level just means like how you're going to be thinking for the rest of your life, how you're going to be processing like everything you encounter, you know what I mean? So I just feel like there's nothing that's not happening except for anything maybe concrete. It's all just moving, it's changing. You can't even tell how quickly it's changing. A year is a lifetime. I mean, when you're 12, a 13-year-old is so much cooler and older, and when you're 14, a 12-year-old is a child, and when you're 16, a 13-year-old seems pretty young. When you're 17, it's like a 12-year-old, like that's a baby. You know what I mean? And this all just happened in about 4 to 5 years.
Absolutely.
And then by the time you're 19, you feel like you're an adult, and you're a baby. Sorry if anybody here is 19. I'd imagine at least somebody here is 19, if we know our demographic. But, it really is just a period of just immense transformation. It's like, it's okay.
Also, it's a time when you're being opened up suddenly to so many more forces in the world. Like, when you're a child, you're mostly influenced by your parents, and they're kind of controlling what is influencing you. And then as you enter middle school, you gain more independence, you're spending more and more time with your peers. And now, like, you're on social media, And
Which
I
is
feel
great
like,
for kids.
Yeah. We recommend it.
Yeah, studies show.
Follow
Great
Podcrushed.
time. It's not having anything but good effects. Sorry,
But
go ahead.
it's such a tender time,
Sure.
and they're being shaped, really. And so I think that was part of the reason we felt it was important to focus in on this time and tell stories about it and use it as a tool for reflection and think about how you've been shaped by your middle school experiences. And also originally we thought maybe some middle schoolers might listen. It's sort of evolved since then, but
Sure.
Originally we kind of wanted to make it like
For middle schoolers.
For middle schoolers, yeah.
Did middle schoolers listen?
Predominantly Penn's fan base, which is like 18 plus.
Gotcha. Okay. So not 12 years old.
Yeah. We have some middle schoolers who listen, but not.
And
not
shout
as
out
many.
to them.
Yeah.
On the show, you ask about sort of classic teenage milestones, like we're beginning to talk about first crushes, heartbreak, and I feel like that is.
Sorry, I just exhaled deeply into the. I
Please
was
stop exhaling. You can refrain from breathing.
You hear that?
Tap, tap, tap.
They're loving that.
All right, I
Yeah.
just got to be conscious of that. Okay. All right.
And I think this crush talk it's such a smart way of cutting to the quick with someone. It really is, because it's like you jump immediately into this intimate conversation about the sweet and the embarrassing and the vulnerable parts of someone that we often hide as an adult. I know you do this on the show, but I would love to do it again. Can one of you share a story of a crush from your middle school years? You already did,
I
so
did
you're
it,
safe.
so you guys.
Can one of the two of you share a story about a crush and how it shaped you?
I can.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Well, why just one of us? But yeah, go ahead.
Both of you
Go ahead,
should.
Sophie.
Okay, sure. Yeah, well, I mean, this isn't necessarily a first crush, but I do remember, it shaped me, this experience. It was someone who had been chasing me. I wasn't interested, and then we ended up getting together, but I was at a point in my life where I wasn't talking to any of the adults in my life really about those feelings.
Sure.
And I would talk to my parents about a lot of things, but it was like post middle school, early high school, I had decided no more. This is my life now. And my family went on a trip with another family, and I was sharing a room. We kind of like drew straws, and I was sharing a room with an older girl. She was in her 20s in college, and I was 16. I was so embarrassed. I remember taking my mom, taking my sister, like, please, one of you, like stay with me. I don't want to stay with her. I'm so nervous.
Because you were nervous around, to Penn's point, 20 years old felt like
Oh.
the
Yes.
oldest age you could be.
Oh my God, she was so cool, and what would we have to talk about? And
Totally.
she would certainly like see me like plucking my lip hairs in the mirror or something. I don't know. I was so nervous. And as soon as we got into our room, she was like, so let's talk about boys. And I melted, and I told her everything, things I wouldn't tell my parents. She ended up becoming my sister-in-law.
Wow, you married her brother?
No, she married my brother.
That's how that works. Hard to do that on the fly.
Yeah. And I just feel like I have realized now how important it is for that age group, teens, tweens, to have adults in their life or just older people who they can talk to and who are not judging them, or it seems like they're not judging them. I think Millie, my sister-in-law, ended up talking to my parents about what I told her.
No, that's
fine.
That's violating the code.
In time, you
In
said.
time, yeah.
After
I
she
didn't
married your
find
brother,
out.
she was like, listen, guys, so I gotta tell you something.
This is something to worry about.
Gotta tell you about something. You know, silly Sophie? Well. Well.
Not gonna
We got
let
some
her-
other S words. No, but I feel like that shaped me when I became a fifth grade teacher. I feel like that was something I always had in mind. Like, it's a delicate balance
Yes.
with young people. You don't want to alienate them. You don't want to put them in a position where they're like, oh, great, so now I know you're not someone I'm going to talk to. Yeah. First crush?
Oh, right. Well, let's see. I don't have. The interesting thing about me with this, the way that I approach it is, for some reason, probably because I moved to LA when I was 12, and I should also give a shout out to my mother who is here.
Yay.
I'm not
What's a shout?
I'm not going to point her out, but I mean, to be honest, you might be able to guess who she is, right?
Incredible.
And I mention that now because, I was having a lot of formative experiences at the time that were like, we've since talked about, but it is interesting to talk about them with my mother here. I think I went from being exceedingly shy, and then also, like I said, I had gotten, this happens to so many people, but whatever, I was chubby. I became chubby in approaching adolescence, like 8, 9, 10. And as I was doing that, I was also kind of getting into this idea of acting. And it was, people telling me about this idea that, you're good, you should do this, it maybe, So I think very, very early on, something was already happening. Some kind of process had already started where I don't recall a lot of just getting to kind of have this time of crushes and awkwardness, and I was working by the time I was 12.
Yeah,
literally I was
really
working
intense.
Professionally by the time I was 12. And enjoying that, loving that, actually. And in some ways having all of these incredible, expansive experiences that most people that age are not getting to have that I think benefited me. But then there's other things like this part, the crush, which turns into the sexuality part, which was it was just changed. It was changing. And so I went from being an extremely quiet, shy, asked one girl out once and she said no, and I was like, okay, well then never again.
That's it.
And then suddenly I'm living in LA and going out for roles where it's I read one where it's there's a kiss and I'm like, whoa, and I actually, I know a lot of people who had their first kiss on camera. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And getting paid for it, no less. So there's just all kinds of, yeah. You thought it, I didn't. It's funny, the way that I intersect with this whole concept is I just didn't, somehow, it was never as much fun as it could have been, should have been, would have been. Yeah. And then, very early on, it was just there was a gravity to it. There was a change that was happening. The idea that I needed to exhibit a certain kind of masculinity and sexuality and stuff, I really saw early on. And we're talking late '90s Brad Pitt Fight Club era. So any boy was just okay, well that's it. That's it for us. If I don't look like that, then maybe not everybody felt that way, but I think anybody who might have been in the realm of living in Hollywood might have felt that way. So my memory of crushes, it's loaded. It went from this 0 to 100 real fast.
But this is why I think it's so smart, the conversations you have on your show, because asking a kind of simple seeming question like, what's an early crush? What can you tell me about that? It reflects so much more. And I guess I want to follow up and just say why do you think we should take crushes seriously and not discount them as frivolous? What kind of mirror do they hold up to us? What do they reveal? This can be for anyone.
That's a good question.
Something I like about you all too is you take the time to think, which is in silence, which I love.
Well, I think they're not frivolous. Feelings are feelings, and feelings that bring joy, more, right? Crushes are so fun and yummy, especially when they don't go south. So I think that's great. A crush tells you something about the person who's experiencing it and what they value, in terms of who they like. It also tells you something about the society they live in, sort of who the society tells you is valuable.
Totally.
So I think a crush is very revealing about a person and a time and a place and a particular moment. And I think it also, young crushes or what happens to you at 12, 13, 14, you can start to write a social script or a script for yourself that can actually, you can be operating from that script really late into life. Sometimes people have to do a lot of work to stop operating from that script.
Totally.
So actually it can be really helpful to go back and say what is the early script that I wrote? And like, am I still operating from that script?
Yeah.
And how can we write a new one?
Totally.
So I think even for ourselves to not dismiss the early experiences we had and not just think of them as like, that was silly or that was frivolous or that was meaningless, because you'll probably find that it was really important and that it was shaping you and that it was formative. Like they say, it was truly a formative experience. So what does it mean that it was formative? What does it mean that it literally formed you and wired you and that you have your neural pathways that are going in a particular way? And what does it mean if you have to try to rewire them? What's the work that requires?
You are making the case for crushes, and I'm fully on.
Yes,
That is
crushes.
so, I mean, I think everyone when they leave here should tell someone they have a crush on them. How about that? That could be cool.
Let's all make a pact tonight.
Totally, let's all do it. Pinky.
Yeah.
What about, do you have any thoughts on why crushes are important? Or did
I
you
mean,
cover it?
we call Nava the summarizer on the podcast.
Incredible.
She's just like to the point, but not
Synthesizer.
just to the point. Like she's not being superficial. She's going deep, but she says it so well.
You say it so well. You really
true.
do.
I mean, that is the crux of it, I think. It's well, first of all, even the concept of a social script, right? Like we talk about things being socially constructed. Well, if something is socially constructed, then, you know, we all play a role in that. You uphold it socially by, again, this idea that who you're even attracted to has a large part of it. I don't know that I would call it a majority. I don't know what the piece of the pie is, but you know, who you're attracted to is hugely shaped by social teachings, you know, social just practices and mores and norms. Like I'm remembering just how, you know, from a young boy's perspective who was so shy, asked one girl out and was told no and was just like, yep, never doing that ever again. You know, it just was like, why did all the girls have a crush on like the same three dudes?
Yeah. You're
What on
still
earth
mad
was
about
going
that.
on? And see, we get one man laughing. He's like, yeah, bro.
I can't tell if he was one of the three dudes or not.
That laugh sounded like he was not.
That was-
and neither was I. Neither was I.
That's
So like, I don't know what, and like they're always named like Drew or something, you know?
Yeah.
Like, at least in my case. it
Totally
was.
Drew,
You know, it's like Drew,
Not Drew.
Jordan, like I don't know. Like
Let's not name names for legal purposes.
And even what I have heard people say as they've grown older, they're like, yeah, they were always like the most. Sometimes there's this like super average dude who everybody loves.
Yeah.
Every like, and you know what's going on there.
Yeah.
And fine, great, give him his flowers. Happy for him now. You know.
Where did he end up?
Yeah.
I want to know.
But who's the one on stage right now?
I mean, honestly, there is a lot of, because also at this age, it's the first time that you're ostensibly like you're going out into the world and like perpetuating it or creating something a little bit different or you know any mix between these two things. So yeah, I just the notion of a social script is really what draws us. And it's funny, we've been talking about this for years. I don't know, Nava, that you've ever used that particular phrase, and we're yeah. But that is essentially it. It's like it's a crush. Oh, and then the other thing I think that you mentioned that I want to underscore is feelings are real. You know, I mean, I often
Totally.
make jokes to belittle like a crush because.
I thought you were saying me and Sophie. Like,
Yeah, them too.
Yes.
Yeah, but I think the term crush has so many frivolous implications, whereas your feelings, first of all, are always valid. It doesn't mean that they're based in fact, and it doesn't mean that you're entitled to behave however you want based on your feelings. But your feelings are your feelings. You know, your feelings are actually the one, as I understand it, your feelings are the one part of like you and you can't control them. You know, you can control what your body does somewhat. You can't control how you feel. You can respond to your feelings. You can manage how you behave according to your feelings. So you know, so your feelings. You know, my memory of the crushes that I did have, they were so strong. They were so strong. They came from a desire to be loved and accepted and held in a way that is not only at all sexual, but it's of course the only box we have to put that in the beginning. So you're actually putting so many feelings and then attaching it to this thing that you've also never experienced, and so it's just very confusing. You know, when really what you want is you want something that is it transcends the body. You want a commitment. You want, I think I mean, if we're really calling it what it is, the feeling that you want from the person that you desire is you want something that that makes life meaningful. You want everything to be okay. You know, you have this feeling when you're like lovesick that it won't be okay unless I am with this person. And by the way, that's a complete fantasy. Like, it's just never true. I mean, maybe you'll have something that you can continue, blah, blah, blah. But I mean, you know. So, yeah, there's really no end to the depth.
I think, yeah, I would actually say I agree with what you guys are saying.
She's going to disagree.
Yes, fight on stage.
But
I also am like, are they that, like, they can be and they feel so big.
Sure.
But then I think also maybe when we look back on them, or even when we're helping youngsters through them, we can try to remind them sometimes, like, it's totally normal for you to feel like this is so big and so major, but you will, like, this is totally normal for you to feel this way, and it's actually, you're going to feel this way many, 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 many times, and it's not the end of the world. Like, it doesn't have to be that deep, actually.
yeah.
You're bringing up this intensity of feeling everything when you're this age feels completely overwhelming, end of the world, end of your life. How do you balance, like, giving someone that age perspective, but also not invalidating their feelings? How do you think about that?
Well, because I think that also depends. Like, I had like one crush so it was probably more than a crush.
Wow, only one.
All of high school, like the same boy, the one that like 7th through 12th grade. So it wasn't like you're gonna have it again and again. It was like the same person.
The same person.
Yeah. But you had many.
Yes.
So I think it really depends. But yeah, I think it's like listening to people, and I think Leighton Meester, like our pilot guest, talked about it. She sort of started on from what I recall, because that was like 100 episodes ago. It started on like, it's not that big of a deal, and then she was like, but you have to validate what they're saying. So, and I feel like that's always the push-pull of life. It's like you want to listen to someone, and then everything we go through is like it's a wave, and whatever wave we're in, we're riding it. And it can feel like the biggest thing, and at some point that wave is gonna bring us to shore, and then we'll have to write another one.
And that's why it's so fascinating to read back a diary, for example, to the genesis of the show, because you read these names. I mean, I have this experience, like reading a diary from middle school, high school, and being like, who is this person that I'm talking about? You know what I mean? Like, it feels so intense, but I can't even recall who they are, so it does pass, and we're reminded of our past selves and that past intensity when we read a diary or something like that.
Well, it makes me think that, like, you're not necessarily having these feelings in response to a person. I mean, so sometimes you often are. They're a configuration of attributes, their character, their body, all these things that it comes together and it's like, okay, so this is eliciting in me a response, but actually all these feelings are in me, in a sense, you know what I mean? So that's the way I think about validating it, but then putting it in perspective. It's like, look, it's actually not statistically true that you're only ever going to find, one person. That's just, first of all, it's not going to happen. I'm sorry, 13-year-old. I don't know if you're going to get married I don't know, but it just feels to me like, so there is some perspective, right? But then the validation of the feelings is like, thank God that you can feel this much. Even this young. I mean, what would youth be if you weren't having these strong feelings? And also we talk about like social norms and stuff. I'm thinking about the way boys are, and they don't have to be taught this. We learn this from everything, from the air, from the water, from movies, from whatever, and then we do learn it from older men. The power of those feelings, we talk about men wanting to be or needing to be more sensitive. I mean, I think the problem is that they're extremely sensitive, but then they learn that they're not meant to be, and so they start bottling up these feelings, and then you end up with a voice like this. You're just like, what? What do you mean? What do you like? I mean, that's like I have that too, but then been working with that social script for a while, you know, as we were saying, like unpacking and trying to rewrite that. But there was a time when I was like 18, 19, 20. I mean, I put my voice.
You're kidding.
I mean, I wasn't.
Your voice, like your.
But I mean,
Such a shame.
You guys see those sideburns, early Gossip Girl? What is that but masking? What is that but a boy being like, finally I can grow hair on the side of my face?
Was that your choice?
Who would choose that? Yeah.
Actually, I didn't know that either.
Only somebody who could not with their own eyes in real time see the side of that face choose to do that to a face. Everyone else on the planet could look at me like this and be like, no. I could never do it. I could see a picture, but you know, you look at pictures and you're creating a fantasy. You're not seeing what other people see. If I could have ever seen my own head, I would have been like, come here. Come here. It's okay. You don't have to prove anything to anybody.
You're already a man.
Yeah, you're already a man.
Sideburn talk. I had no idea it would go there, but there's so much in the power of that strip of hair.
It had a bell-bottom flare. I mean, it was
bad.
so wide.
I thought it looked okay. Am I in the minority?
Okay. So
Go home and Google a picture. You'll
Some of them are.
They're really bad.
Yeah, I mean, so some era they were not, and like
Yeah.
I don't know. You're probably not much of a Gossip Girl fan, I take it.
That's profiling, but not really.
But no.
But no.
But no. All right.
Never seen an episode, but admire you and admire your work. We are
never seen an episode?
never seen a single.
Great. Love it.
That's why we can.
Here for it. Yeah.
We are quickly running out of time, so just a few more. I want to see where I want to go. The show started by being very sort of specifically about these middle school stories, but as you've continued making it, you've expanded the scope so much, and you're now tackling what I would consider to be like quite adult.
Death.
Yes.
a lot, actually.
Totally. Yeah, no, yeah. And marriage and long-term relationships and having kids. Can you talk about why you wanted to expand? Like, why did you want Podcrushed to grow up?
No one would come on the show. I mean, no, that's not. So practically speaking, you know, the boring answer is like, you just want more guests to come on. They're promoting. So in the beginning, we were just sort of like using my connections for the first 4 guests. That's about how many connections I had. 5, maybe 8, including my wife. Not her as a guest. She was a guest, but the people she would connect us to. In the beginning, we were not getting people on a press tour, and they were kind of down. You know what I mean? And then what we noticed is sometimes you get people on a press tour, actually, and now most of the time, because we're like a proper podcast, we're doing really well.
Don't check the charts.
Yeah, we're soaring. You know, you have to abide by the thing. You can't just talk about adolescence. They're like, what am I going to do that for? Mm-hmm. You know. So naturally, we did have to expand, but then also I think other things that you guys can answer.
Yeah, I mean, I think like we've said many times, these experiences in middle school are like we're still having them as adults, and I think it's interesting to connect the dots with those guests and to see actually the guests connect those dots in real time sometimes in the episode, like, wow, why is this all coming back to 12? Like every question you're asking me, I'm like, I can think of an experience from when I was exactly 12 years old that explains why I'm doing this as an adult, why I'm stuck in this pattern or whatever it is. So I think they're so intimately connected, like it's not really possible to disentangle them.
I also think we've gotten better at researching. So with better research, you learn more about people, and then you can ask them more interesting questions. So I think at the beginning, it was just sort of like we were all new at what we were doing, so even the research aspect was new. So it was a little bit more like, oh, we're just going to ask them all like the same sort of standard questions. But then it was like, no, let's actually like get to know this person. And then, you know, somebody was like, actually, I really like, for instance, when we had Ariana Grande, it was like, she's done so many interviews. I want to ask her something no one has ever asked her.
Yes.
She's like, okay, well, I have to listen to every interview she's ever done. And then ask her something no one's ever asked her. And I think we did. We asked her a few things no one had ever asked her and sort of like bringing that through to other guests. So then when you research them a lot, you're able to ask them things that are interesting.
I was going to say, could you share maybe a favorite moment so we can all go and listen back of that happening with either Ariana or another guest, like a moment where you saw them actively connect these dots?
I can recall so many guests just saying like, wow, yeah, like I haven't thought about this in so long. Sometimes they say right at the beginning, and it's like, Well, you
Got a long
definitely knew
way to
nothing about
go.
this show when you came on.
I don't know if it was like a
please.
connect the dots, but Ariana Grande was just such an incredible interview, and she was I have shared this a lot, but she was so genuinely wonderful. She was so generous. I just want everyone to know this about her.
Yeah.
Most of our guests give us 60 minutes or 90. Ariana spent 4 hours with us. She did not need to. She was just like down for anything. She didn't cut any questions. She let us ask her about like a sensitive time in her life. She didn't veto anything. She was just the like loveliest human, like genuinely.
And didn't she post about it too?
She promoted it more than any other guest we've had this
Incredible.
season.
Get her on my show.
Yeah, she is dressed like I am I had left that interview like a Ariana Grande like super fan.
Wow.
I have like merch now. I was just like, I worship Ariana Grande. So that was like definitely like a favorite interview. But my other favorite interview was Eddie Redmayne.
Oh.
And Eddie Redmayne, like I went into it knowing that I would love him, but was like floored with the person that he is. And he was someone who was on a press tour, didn't know what our podcast was. I don't know why he said yes, but he did say yes. And I think at some point we were like, oh my God, we have like 15 minutes left and we haven't asked you about any of your programs. And you came here on a press tour. And
He's like, I've
I
won
don't
3
care.
Oscars, it's
He was
fine.
like, I don't care, let's just keep talking about middle school. And I was like, no,
That's
your publicist is
wonderful.
gonna murder me. So we actually have to move on to your projects. And we did, but it was like, he was so into the early life conversation that he was down to not talk to, and out of respect for his PR, we did talk about his projects. But it was like so nice to see someone just like engrossed in the conversation, not knowing that that's
incredible.
what they were gonna come talk about.
That's really wonderful.
Yeah, I don't remember a specific moment, but I do remember, I think Elizabeth Moss had a moment like that where she went back, like, oh, and she kept thinking of new memories. And then recently Sophie Turner, I feel like, as well. Just a lot happened to her at 12.
Thatcher, yeah.
Oh, sorry, Sophie Thatcher.
4 hours, that's so much time.
Yeah.
She was incredible.
Look at her. All right, transition from Ariana Grande to these audience questions. Thank you for submitting them. I'm just gonna hop in. How are we
Yeah,
feeling?
yeah, let's
Ready
go.
to give some advice? What do you hope people get from reflecting on the hardships and trauma of adolescence? Great question.
I suppose the best thing you can get from reflection is understanding. And then from understanding, several things, I suppose. Relief, both from maybe false and restrictive beliefs about yourself, but then also about others. And then, you know, I know that understanding is a great one. And then it branches out from
You're
there.
looking to...
Branches out from there. Why don't you guys pick it up?
Yeah, understanding of your own experience, and then I would hope that someone might gain some empathy for younger friends.
Yeah. And also, like, you are, this is so obvious, but you are every version of yourself. Like, you were the 12-year-old version of yourself. So, like, self-compassion, and, like, life is so hard and so brutal, and at that time in life, a lot of things are out of our control, but that's the time where we're formed. So to have, like, appreciation for that, and, like, it's okay if things happened that shaped you in a way that you wish you hadn't been shaped. And you can also, like, you're not fully formed. No matter how old you are, like, you're still on a path, and you can continue on that path, or you can take a right turn. Like, you're in control of who you are, and you can still make new choices.
It's a wonderful idea I feel like y'all return to a lot, which is that coming of age is a lifelong process. And it's so true, and it's quite freeing to understand that. You just keep discovering things about yourself and working things out. I think this question, I speed read that, so I think it is related. This is from Ariana. I'm 31, but sometimes I feel my 13-year-old self comes through in the form of insecurities. How can I heal my 13-year-old self, and by extension, my adult self? Wonderful question, very relatable.
Gosh, I wish I knew, because I texted my sister the entire time I was preparing for this, like, do I like this in terms of my outfits? And I'm struggling with the same thing, Ariana.
Totally.
So I don't know.
So we have written a collection of essays. We've written a book called
Yes.
Crushmore, a collection of essays on love, loss, and coming of age.
Out October 7th.
They've written a book, they've written a book.
And the book mostly focuses on our middle school experiences, but it does go into adulthood. And I cried so much writing my essays. I'm probably gonna cry right now. But it was like, I didn't expect to cry writing the ones, I mean, I wrote one, my mom passed away and I wrote one about that, and I knew I was gonna cry writing that one. It was like so difficult to write, difficult to edit, very predictable. But other ones were so hard to write. And I think what was really hard was the realization that things that are hard for me, oh my gosh, yeah, things that are hard for me now were hard then. And to be like, oh my gosh, I haven't learned it yet. Like, wow, like I was 12 and I'm this age, like how could I still not have learned that lesson? And so I totally get that. But also to be like, well, it's not too late, I'm not dead. So like, it's fine. Like, I think we have this idea that like you had to accomplish it by this age or you're a failure, but you don't. Like, you are a person, you are growing. And we're all in development and we're never fully formed.
Do you want to follow that?
I always have to, right?
It's like, I'm fully formed though. He's like, so I don't know about you, but.
No.
Once you shaved the sideburns, it was off to the races.
No, it's so true. I mean, in some ways, I in writing the book, kind of my first essay, I started out just being like, yeah, I really feel still like that 12-year-old in so many ways. I feel like, it's hard to explain, you have to read the book. But,
Out October 7th.
but I mean, read it for, can't you read books? No, you can't read it for free. We'll have to figure that out for you. But it's, not to just repeat what I've said, but I think to me, the gift of understanding is sort of, it is the first in order of gifts to the human mind and heart and spirit and soul. Like, understanding can do everything and anything. And so my completely armchair psych understanding of trauma, having read a fair amount about it, trying to understand it, don't quote me here, but it has to do with, an event doesn't have to be traumatic. Now, this is not to say, of course, if anyone's traumatized, that it's an invalidation of that. Complete opposite. Something is traumatizing not just because of the nature and scale of the event, but because of the victim or the person being traumatized, because of their understanding of what's happening, or what they don't understand about what's happening. Ultimately, like, coming to terms with that is a process of understanding, and it's great and slow and incredible, but understanding kind of unlocks everything. Being able to understand why this one moment has stood out to you. That one moment where I felt humiliated. And then you might be like 43 or 63 or 83. And you're like, oh. Huh. And it doesn't change everything. It doesn't solve maybe anything. But it does bring relief. And I do think that, like, so, the person who asked this question, like, there's no way we could answer it specifically at all, because you couldn't fit, like, all the things you're dealing with on that little card. and who are we to even, But I do think that, like, I think what I heard Nava speaking to and Sophie speaking to was, like, mercy and time. And then eventually understanding can bring peace. I think it's the only thing that can. I really do think it's the only thing. One of the reasons relationships are nice is because they speed that process up, which is also why it's painful, because you're like, I'm not ready to understand that part of me yet. Like, whoa. It's you, But that is, like, to me, understanding is everything. It really can bring everything.
Thank you for those responses. Very, very beautiful. I'm going to pivot it to a different question.
Is that ice cream something lighter?
There are a lot of Dan Humphrey questions that I'm saving for, like, rapid fire at the end.
If you know me, I am incapable of a rapid fire.
Really? Actually, I do know that.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. Let's try this one. What are your thoughts on the current dating environment, perhaps particularly in New York?
Trash.
Yeah.
Trash. Take it from a married man. Trash.
That's perfect.
You're married. You're fully married.
Yeah, exactly.
Did any of you date in New York? Or were you...
No, I lived in New York and I was dating, but it was mostly long distance. So.
Yeah, I did a little bit. I'm gonna blame myself. I think I have a proclivity for wasting time. And that has followed me in every city because I've been in every city that I've been in. So, yeah.
Do you want to elaborate on trash? Or you're just
Well, but I think so. You're being brave and bold and like, okay, so that's your personal responsibility. But then, come on, dating culture is absolute trash.
Yeah. Also.
Let me be a bit more specific. I think it's full of lies and performances that don't even lead to a meaningful friendship, let alone a romantic relationship.
Yeah. My
Bars.
Say that.
Bars.
Say that. Totally. Were you going to say something?
My advice is always look at the people you already know. I don't know. It's like there might be some. That's what happened for me, and so I'm biased. But I feel like sometimes there is like a diamond in the rough, or someone you never considered, and then you spend some time with them again, and.
I was going to say, as two people who have successfully escaped the dating pool, are partnered, can you give us like a brief love story? How did you meet your partner? This is not a question on the card, it's a question from me.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Brief. We met and nothing happened, ships in the night, and then again met. What I didn't know that was within those 2 years, David, my husband, had several dreams. And we didn't know each other. And he's really like a pragmatic guy. He was having the dreams and thinking like, this is annoying.
Of you, dreams
yes,
of you.
Of me, random ones, like I was passing by in the grocery store. Anyway, we ended up crossing paths again, and we hit it off.
Did he say right off the bat, like, I've had three dreams about you?
He did not tell me for a long time.
I'd be like, all right, yeah.
Because that would have been, okay, goodbye. Yeah.
That is really sweet.
But yeah, it was mystical. It was kind of like a divine thing, I feel like. Like sometimes I think, well, what if I had been traveling? What if this had happened and we hadn't met? And I feel like that actually did happen. We did meet and nothing happened and then we met again. So yeah, I feel like, you go.
Dreams.
Dreams, yeah.
I'm just trying to think of. So, I've never really dated. Actually, I think I've been on one date, and it was just sort of like, it was already made complicated by the fact that I was on Gossip Girl, and so it just felt like, and I think truth be told, I mean, she did know who I was, and it was just sort of like, so how are we going to go about this acting like we need to go through this process? Like if this is about hooking up, are we going to do that?
Yeah.
And it was, I'm not saying that that's what, I mean, I literally just was like, this feels like such a bizarre charade, that I just felt like I didn't get to know that person at all. We didn't, there was nothing there. I've been in 4 relationships, and the 4th one was my wife. And they've all lasted longer than 2 years. And this is just, it's like the 4 women that I've been with, I meet, and it's just kind of immediate. It's impossible to explain. But what I've learned there is that you can have these incredible feelings, but there is a time limit on how long those feelings get you through a relationship. Then you have to learn what it is that actually gets you through a relationship. That's when you learn about your compatibilities and your incompatibilities. And so when we met through a mutual friend. I was very, very sick. Did not want to be like going out or drinking or anything. It was the middle of January. I was headed home.
He carried all his belongings in a trash bag.
I actually did at this point.
Well, that sounds like a salient detail.
Not with me, but I was staying in an Airbnb when Airbnb was very cheap.
He was trying to land a Huck Finn roll.
And all of my belongings were in a trash bag, and then a suitcase, and then what I couldn't in a trash bag. I had all of my stuff.
I feel like you could afford another suitcase, but yeah.
Yeah, but I was not.
We'll move on from the trash
I was not thinking rationally all the time, and I did not. Yeah, a mutual friend texted a friend who at that point was even a bit suspicious of, being like, I don't want to go to things you're inviting me to. I don't want to. She was like, come out.
Why? Because she would set you up with people?
No, because it was just there was other stuff with.
Okay.
There was other. It was just like high school shenanigans. And I was like, I don't want to. And she invited me out. It was on the way home from the train to the Airbnb I was sleeping in. It was there. I was like, all right, I'll go by, say hi. I say hi. She's like, the moment I show up, she says, oh, it's cool. A few other people are going to come meet me. I texted like 5 different people, so you can leave when they come. And I was like, great. And then she said, I asked, or maybe she told me. She's like, yeah, my friend Domino is going to come. And she said the name. And this sounds crazy because I was not the type of person to, if I thought it, why would I say it? But I said these words. I said, I think I could fall in love with that person.
No.
What? Who? Like, that's crazy.
So
Trash
cute.
bag in hand, I think I could fall in love with that.
Trash bag in hand. and then
Domino sounds like she'd have a place for me to stay.
She did actually that night try to help me find an apartment and then offered for me to stay in her extra room. Yeah. And because of that, and she was sending me pictures of her son. She had a 5-year-old. He just turned 5 the day before. I was just like, oh, there's no way. She's showing pictures of her son, and she's offering her extra room to me. Like, I felt pathetic. I had bronchitis, so I was just I really, really, really felt low. Yeah. I felt like the same, 10-year-old who'd been denied by Kayla Peterson. That's the one person. I don't remember names that well. Like, yeah.
We'll cut that from wherever this goes.
So, is this being recorded?
I don't know.
Speak it louder and clear. It's being recorded.
I was not aware that this was being recorded.
I didn't hear the name.
So, it's a great, in some ways it's a great story, but I also feel like that's, we have a really simplistic notion of relationships and dating and even marriage. It's like, just because there's this great meeting and just because you're compatible, that doesn't mean like everything. Like, you really have to figure out how to make it work, because I had other meetings like that, and I happened to be a person who, like, the 3 relationships in my 20s all kind of started that way. They were just sudden, didn't seem to have control. Who doesn't? You should have some control. Yeah. You should have some say, right? So,
It's a beautiful story.
Take what you can from it.
For sharing that. Do we have time to do these like 3 Gossip Girl questions?
Quick.
Okay.
Fast. I'll
one's
try
about
to answer in
you.
3 words.
Okay. Oh, wait. I have to end on this one. This is from Penn's mom.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
We're skipping the other ones. I'm really sorry. Penn, please explain you are not a middle school dropout, from mom.
Wait, you lied?
That's the tagline of our show, that he's a middle school dropout.
Yeah, well, it's a joke because so you're a 5th grade teacher, right? Not a middle school teacher. So we fudge a little bit to create a tagline.
Okay.
I didn't complete middle school, but to say I dropped out would imply I didn't go to school afterward. What she's referencing is the fact that I got the equivalent of a high school diploma and attended community college.
Wow.
And got the equivalent of actually no, I didn't finish that degree, but then I was accepted to USC as a junior transfer.
Wow.
So I could have gone to college. My mother is correct. Yes, she's trying.
That's amazing.
She's trying to say that my son is very smart, and it implies that I did not have any concern for his well-being and his education, and I did. And she did. She fought. So in Hollywood, she fought. See, not a short answer.
No.
She fought. She really helped create in a town where there's no structure for children. It's like a structure fire, in fact. She helped create a path forward that had some kind of structure. It had some other craziness to it, but yes, I actually kept my schooling as formal as I could, which still means I did not actually finish middle school, and I attended high school for less than 40 days, which you can read about in our book.
The book! Okay, let's plug the book, and then I think we got a jet. When does the book come out?
October 7th.
October 7th, available for pre-order now, wherever you buy books.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's called Crushmore.
No ghostwriters, we wrote it all ourselves.
Definitely.
Yes,
That I can vouch for.
Yeah, exhaustively.
Painstakingly.
Wish there were ghosts who could write for us. Wish I would kill people to make ghosts
That's a good place
who could
to
write the
end.
book.
Yeah, perfect.
And there it goes full circle. We were waiting for a you reference, right?
Let's give it up for the host of Podcrushed. I think we jumped.
Let's give it up for Anna Martin.
Yes, Anna Martin.
Thank you.
Yeah.